Welcome, welcome to Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I am your host, Megan, and my amazing co-host is...
Hey, I'm Amanda.
Hello.
Hey.
We are your source for messy, imperfect homeschool advice. We love our respective kids, and we love homeschooling, so this isn't a bitch fest where we show up and complain for the length of an episode. But we do share the full spectrum of the homeschool experience. We'll share the incredible highs and the days where you'd give up a semi-vital organ for just a moment to yourself. It's all here, wrapped up in one big podcast.
Yeah. The other thing that's totally our jam, secular and progressive views. Megan and I homeschool like so differently. I'm an aggressive academic homeschooler, and she's a loosey-goosey unschooler. We parent pretty differently as well, but we've been friends and now business partners for nearly 5 years. We are really good at agreeing to disagree on these kinds of things. I can be over here thinking, I would never in a million years do that, but still be absolutely genuine when I cheer her and her kiddos along on their journey.
Yeah, likewise. I love cheering your family on. It's amazing, right? But we do not agree to disagree on human rights. Okay, this is where we draw the line. We believe that you have lost the right to throw around the word illegal when you voted for a felon. We believe a woman should not be kept alive as a human incubator against her family's wishes. We believe in radical socialist ideas like children shouldn't be left to go hungry in school if their caretakers cannot afford to buy them a lunch or provide a lunch that day.
Yeah, right. Generally, we are sick and tired of people trying to tell us how our entire country needs to be governed because of what the Bible says. Like, I don't, I don't even, I mean, we could go on and on for the whole podcast and then some, right? Like, enough is enough.
Yeah, and not to mention the Bible would tell you to feed the freaking kid lunch. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm really over
Not
it.
support Jesus.
Right. I know. Yeah, exactly. So like enough, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so have you ever seen that meme that's like the horrors persist, but so do I? Like that is my vibe this week. I'm just I'm afraid.
Yeah. No, I hear that. We're at the point where like, I don't know, I feel like every time I read something, I start crying because I'm like, I can't believe this is where we're at. And my kiddo was like, you have to stop reading this. It's really hard on you. I was like, I know, but we have to fight. Like we can't stop reading. We can't stop paying attention. We have to fight. But gosh, um, it's a lot. And that like, we're going to fight. Okay. So here we are. We're feisty this week. We're going to be talking about the fact that audiobooks are real books and it is actually reading. And yeah, this is a hill we're going to die on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this debate goes well beyond homeschooling, right? When I lived in
Absolutely.
Texas, there was a post in our neighborhood Facebook group where this parent was looking for a book recommendation for her kid, and it had to fit some criteria. I don't honestly remember now. Maybe it was like it needed to be nonfiction or a biography or something. I don't remember. But the important part of this conversation was that I suggested that she give her kiddo Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime. And I specifically said, I've read the paperback version and I've read the audiobook, and I would highly recommend the audiobook over the print because his language skills and his comedic timing just completely changed the whole experience of the book. And she said, well, his teacher doesn't allow audio. And I was like, well, then that teacher just shrank that learning experience immeasurably, right? Like, what kind of a short-sighted ridiculousness is this? And so, yeah, I get feisty about a good audiobook. Like, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. So definitely stay tuned. But first, we do like to start all of our episodes with a weekly recap as part of our keeping it real approach to homeschooling and just life in general. So, how has your week been, Megan?
It's been pretty good. I've gotten just some random daytime sleep, which has been amazing. If you're a regular listener, you know that we've been running a marathon and a sprint all together for like months, right? It's just been busy, busy, busy. And so this week I had kind of gotten caught up on some stuff, and it was just good. I would just daytime nap and it was amazing. My daughter left to go to a weaving conference in Washington State, and it took her 3 flights to get there, one of which went through Texas. So I was a little bit nervous about that because they had mobilized their National Guard. And when Amanda flew through there the week before, there were a bunch of Homeland Security people, and it was not a super like welcome to Texas vibe. So I was a little bit worried about that. But she made it through A-OK. She's there. She's having fun. So that's all good. We went for a really nice long walk on the BEACH yesterday, which I can't say that word too good because Waffles gets like, oh my gosh, are we going now? Girlfriend did get a little bit of like a cactus situation going on. Nothing that hurt her, thank goodness, because she has a lot of hair. So it all just got kind of caught in her hair. But that was fun to come home and take care of. So that was good. One of the authors that I read a lot of her books, she released a new book on Tuesday. So I'm pretty pumped about that. I'm like halfway through it. And so far it's pretty good.
Nice.
So yeah, just like generally kind of like aside from Astrid leaving, kind of like a ho-hum week of just regular life. Nothing amazing, nothing terrible. And that's that. It was my brother-in-law's birthday the other day. So we went out and celebrated with him and had a nice meal and whatnot. So yeah. How about you? What's your week been like?
Nothing terribly exciting is happening. We're visiting family in the Midwest. We're staying with my folks. My brother and his family live in the same neighborhood. In theory, that should be great. And the visit itself is fine. If you've listened to us before, you know that I have a lot of health issues. And normally I'm able to anticipate when I'm going to like really be on the struggle bus and when my chronic fatigue and my PEM and all of that are like really flaring. I'm not entirely sure how or why, like exactly what's happening, but like I do not have a good handle on them. So I'm like, yeah, I'm really struggling this week just to survive. And so, I haven't blown up at anyone. So we're going to call that a win. I also haven't done a whole lot of parenting. Like this has been one of those weeks where like I make sure that we're all still alive. And I'm certain my mom feels like she's doing a lot more of the parenting than I am right now. And I'm like, oh, he knows how to feed himself. So it's fine. I sent him a few unit studies and was like,
Have fun.
fun video in here. Enjoy. So, I mean, sometimes that's all you can do. And as long as, you survive another day to see how the next one goes. And eventually, right, the next one's going to be better. I mean, eventually it's got to get better. At some point, you stop going down and it just goes up. So that's where we are. But I made it. If you're watching the video, my hair's still in the same bun that I wore last night for the live. That's how my week's going. Like, didn't even get a chance to take it out from overnight sleeping on it. So it's not great, but here we are. I made it.
Here.
Yep.
Exactly. We are here. We're doing it, right?
Yep. Yippers. All right. So let's get into it. We are talking about how audiobooks are real books. Notice I did not say, do audiobooks count as real books or whatever, blah, 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 because it isn't a question. We are making a statement of fact here. Some of our episodes are truly just us shooting the shit about whatever particular homeschool strategy or topic or whatever. But this week's episode is definitely going to be a bit more receipt heavy because sometimes you just need to bring the facts. And this is really the only way to prove the efficacy of audiobooks as a reading method. So we're going to link all of the studies that we reference and talk about during this episode in the show notes. So if you're dealing with someone like the Texas teacher Megan mentioned earlier, or as some nosy aunt who is positive that it's not, right, you can show up with your receipts as well. We've got your back. So let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you listen, I'm a history nerd. This is my jam. So we're starting off with some history. Can't help myself. So there's this author she's a freelance writer. She writes for The Guardian in both Australia and the United Kingdom. And she wrote an article, and part of the title of that article said, "Deep down, we still long to be read to." And throughout the article, she talked about her dad reading A.A. Milne to her as a child and how comforting it was to be read to. And she's not wrong. I mean, oral storytelling is the oldest form of communication in our society. So there is something innate in us that loves to hear a story and to have somebody tell us a story. I mean, long before writing systems were developed, humans passed down knowledge culture and beliefs through oral storytelling, right? Knowledge and culture and beliefs, not just like, oh, it's fun, a fun, whimsical thing to do on a road trip, right? These were core pillars of their society that were passed down through oral storytelling. It is possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was the first classroom, the first history book, and the first theater, oftentimes all in one.
Yeah, that's it. And within those oral stories, you'd have life lessons, you'd have values that people were looking to instill in their children, you'd have survival strategies. Oh my gosh, speaking of that, when we were in Prague, we went on this walking tour and the guy talked about a nursery rhyme or something. And he goes, has anybody heard that one? And like immediately everybody started chiming in and like they knew the words and whatever. And it was something to keep the kids out of the water. Like there was
Mhm.
a safety reason for it. And so that just popped back into my head when I thought of that. And I was like, oh yeah, right. So there was a purpose to all of this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is, every culture has an oral tradition. You have Indigenous Australians with Dreamtime stories. You have the West African griots, who were considered the keepers of genealogy and history.
Yeah, I mean, I did my 23andMe
Yeah.
last year, was it?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Came back like as Irish can be. It doesn't mean I'm going to know how to pronounce this word, but my genealogy is there, right? Irish Shanahay, who were storytellers preserving myths and family lore in Ireland.
Well, yeah. And then, I mean, we're US based. So obviously we have Native American or Indigenous oral traditions. And I mean, these are crucial for cultural survival and resistance, right? Like this is not a new idea. Okay. Much of the imagination.
If you look back at the course of history, this went on for thousands of years before
Mhm.
anybody started writing things down. The really interesting thing is as colonization started spreading
Yeah.
into these areas where tribal and indigenous and ancestral people were living, the oral traditions that they held so dearly were dismissed or oftentimes intentionally suppressed because written records were seen as more valuable. So by us continuing with this trope of audiobooks aren't real books, it's kind of supporting that same colonial idea of suppressing this beautiful history of oral storytelling.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay. So perhaps someone could, let's be real, people will make the argument that replacing oral traditions with written expression was an improvement. But remember, we're dying on this hill. So you know we have something to say about that.
Get
Right.
ready
So
for some receipts.
exactly. Right. So first, we have an article from Time magazine. And the quote from the article says, human beings have been sharing information orally for tens of thousands of years, Willingham says, while the printed word is a much more recent invention. He says, quote, when we're reading, we're using parts of the brain that evolved for other purposes, and we're MacGyvering them so they can be applied to the cognitive task of reading, he explains. The article goes on to say, listeners, on the other hand, can derive a lot of information from a speaker's inflections or intonations. Sarcasm is much more easily communicated via audio than printed text. A little aside, I think we all know that. How many times have we been like, is this person being sarcastic or are they truly an asshole? Right. The article goes on to say, and people who hear Shakespeare spoken out loud tend to glean a lot of meaning from the actor's delivery. I don't think any of that's new to us. We know these things. Sometimes we just need a professional, a quality resource to back us up and be like, yes, that's not just your random opinion. We looked at this, it's true.
Mm-hmm. And we'll link all of these studies that we've brought to today's episode in the show notes. So if you need the studies and you want to go deeper, I mean, there's one where we've kind of got like a roll up of neuroscience and but we've got the full neuroscience data there. So like there's a member of our Patreon community who's biological sciences or something, I could totally see her nerding out over the full scientific report, right? So if that's your jam, go for it. Have the best time ever, but we'll link all that stuff that's there. I just remembered, though, that I did forget to share in my weekly update that I bought tickets to go see Macbeth with the Royal Shakespeare Company this week. I had to wake up at 4 a.m. the other day because we're not in the UK time zone right now. And yeah, but we're going to see Macbeth because if you're an Outlander fan and you're listening, Sam Heughan, who stars in Outlander, is playing Macbeth for a 2-month run. And so, yeah, I will be there with bells on. So, as we mentioned Shakespeare, and Macbeth happens to be my favorite tragedy. So I am like, I'll be there with bells on.
I love it. I want to know how many people who aren't homeschoolers can proclaim that they have a favorite tragedy. I mean, I'm sure there are some, right? But I think that that's one of those things that's a little bit more common. All right. So anyway, before we go on, like we said, we've got lots more to talk about, lots more receipts for you, lots more deep diving if you're interested. But are you stuck? Like if you are stuck for whatever reason, if you're just getting started, if you are years in and it's time to do something new and you're not really sure, maybe you need new curriculum, maybe you need to figure out how in the hell you put a high school transcript together. Maybe you've been doing one style and it's just not working anymore, and you just need to bounce some ideas around with people on what new style, what new things to try, because you really love homeschooling and you don't want to walk away from it. We do coaching. Okay. So we do one-on-one coaching. Sometimes it's 2-on-1 if you want to talk with both Megan and I, because we do definitely come to the table with different ideas. But you can schedule to talk with just me about the things that are more my speed. You can talk with Megan about things that she knows all about. We have a Calendly. You can find it pretty much all the places online. We have a website. It's homeschoolmomsunfiltered.com. It's not hard, but the Calendly is also on there. We'll drop it in the show notes. But if at any point you're like, you know what, I really think I would benefit from this, come talk to us. We are happy to do it. The coaching sessions are always awesome. Anyone who has done it has had like amazing experiences, and their praise like makes us blush. But I mean, obviously we're doing something right. And we would love to help you and support you in that way. So come book some one-on-one time with us. And yeah, we would love to chat with you.
Yeah. Can I just say another part of my weekly update that I missed? Last night, I subjected myself to the full 2-hour interview between Tucker Carlson and Rafael
wow.
Cruz, who I refused to call Ted. I did because I feel like we've become guilty of living in a soundbite culture. And those soundbites were out there of Rafael Cruz looking like a moron. And I was like, okay, I have to tell you, most of the 2-hour interview was the two of them just congratulating each other for being amazing and geniuses and agreeing with one another. Like those bits where there was friction, that was it. The rest of the time they were like, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. You're amazing. No, you're amazing. It was nauseating.
Okay.
But anyway, when Tucker Carlson does little breaks like we do, like most podcast people do, you cannot skip them. And I should have gotten an award. He's promoting some university that's not woke and this, that, the other thing. But the one was some weapon that you can buy that shoots like tear gas and rubber bullets so that you can't be persecuted for defending yourself the way Rittenhouse was. Let me tell you, I deserve a medal for sitting through that entire thing. But I really wanted to hear the whole thing and not just, everybody's talking about it. And I'm like, but all the people are talking about are just those like handful of clips. It was 2 hours and all we've seen are like 3 minutes of it.
Yeah.
And it was an adventure, let me tell you. So I appreciated your little interjection into the conversation a whole lot more than Tucker Carlson's.
I mean, but also like, come on, it's so hard. These days, it's so hard because everything we talk about it, right? We remind people like, hey, please share our episode, like if wherever you are, blah, 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 because everything is driven by algorithms. And so like on the one hand, I want the real information, but on the other hand, there's absolutely nowhere you can watch the entire thing that they don't get like a boost to their numbers, and it doesn't help them be like, look, we bring so many people in, like sponsor us, give us more money to sell these weapons that should never have even been created.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't even, and now like you're going to have to spend forever like sorting out your algorithm because you only have to watch one terrible thing or listen to one terrible thing before you're like, oh, my computer being inundated with this crap.
Yep. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, it was interesting to see the whole thing in balance as opposed to just just the clips, but it was also slightly like I did want to gouge my eyeballs out a little bit too at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. The good news is with an audiobook, you never need to gouge your eyeballs out because
Sure.
they're not consuming the trash, right?
Don't stick anything in your ears either. That's also a bad idea.
Oh my gosh, did you just see that thing with Candace What's-Her-Face about how horror movies are portals into your homes that open an opportunity for the devil to come into your home? Cameron, what's Kirk
Oh,
Cameron's sister? Is that Cameron? Candace Cameron. That's Candace, that's her, right?
Candace Cameron Burr, maybe?
Yes, that's her. That's her. How they're portals into your home and they take over your home for the devil or something. It was a
Should have
whole
lost the plot, right? Like, and I used to watch her a lot because I'm all about like the Hallmark movies and that like the holiday stuff where I talked about like next month we're doing a whole Christmas in July like themed thing. I'm super looking forward to it. And then she's like really lost the plot.
Oh, she's out there.
She's left Hallmark. She's got her whole like a special weird channel that she does all of her stuff on. So at least now we don't
stay over there.
we don't have to like watch our consumption quite as much. Although again, I struggle with that. Like, do we watch the old ones that she's in? Because I bet she still gets some kind of royalty.
Yeah.
Not, like, ugh.
Anyway. I'm telling you. Anyway, right? I know. All right. Receipt number 2. All right. This is an article by this person named Pernil Rip. I hope I'm pronouncing her name properly. She used to be a teacher in the American public school system. She's an adult literacy coach. And I love the fact that she's doing early childhood work now in Denmark. And I love that because we've talked before about the different systems that are in Denmark and Finland and Germany and the way their littles are play-based until about age 7 and they're not pushing early literacy and all that kind of stuff. So I love that she's expanding into that world. But in her article, which again we'll link, she says, sure, there are cognitive differences in the processes that happen when we read with our eyes versus our ears. However, the skills that we are able to utilize through reading an audiobook are monumental in building further reading success. And this is not just her saying this. She says, research has shown that the cognitive processes are surprisingly similar. Listening to an audiobook can provide many of the same cognitive benefits as reading books in print, including improved vocabulary, comprehension, and critical thinking skills. And that's from a study that came from the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled. So there are some main talking points from this article that really back that up. So the first is that students can develop critical thinking skills without having to spend enormous brain power on decoding. Hello, right? I mean, it's like anything else. Think about somebody who has like sensory challenges. The amount of energy that they need to spend managing all the sensory input takes away from anything else that they're trying to do. It's like when we force an ADHD kid to sit still and stop tapping their foot or stop swinging their legs. The amount of brain power that they're putting into not doing those things takes away from the task that you actually want them to be doing. Same concept.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you have a kiddo or an adult in your family who has a slower processing speed or slower working memory, and that means that they have to spend more of that energy working on that. If you throw in, okay, now you have to decode, and while you're doing that and working on all of that, now make sure that you've got your critical thinking skills going and you're working on your reading comprehension and you're this and you're that. Like, you only have so much energy. You only have so much computing power. We've all been there. You've got your old phone and it's almost done and you're trying to run more than one program at one time. And it's like, time to buy a new one unless you want a break. Don't do that to your brain. Okay. So it also talks about the fact that children who listen to audiobooks showed significant improvements in reading comprehension and fluency, according to Stanford University. So we don't have to simplify our text choices when students can receive proper support through audiobooks. This should not be rocket science. You don't have to completely simplify or dumb down what you're giving to kids when you can just use audiobooks.
We've talked about that before on the podcast, that I think my youngest read later than he might have otherwise because he had access to audiobooks. And I'm not saying that that was a bad thing because his vocabulary is ridiculous from having audiobook access. But yeah, I mean, in an audiobook, he could read these amazing, really rich stories with character development and scenery description and all of that. And then when you handed him an actual book, it was like Biscuit walks to school. Biscuit likes school. And he's like, I'm not reading it. So it took him some time to get to the written because he had the audio first. And he was like, but these stories are way better. I'm not limited by my ability to actually take in what's on the page. But eventually he got there. So we're all good. Yeah. Okay. I love this one. It says, according to the Journal of Adolescent Psychology, audiobooks can be a valuable tool for improving reading comprehension and retention in individuals with ADHD or other attention disorders. Children who prefer to move rather than remain static can pace, doodle, or otherwise release energy while they listen. So often, my kids, not meaning because I'm quoting the author, she says, so often my kids, meaning her students, who self-confessed to hating reading, tell me that what they really hate is sitting still. So providing them with a way to listen while moving has enormous benefits. And we've talked about this so many times on the podcast. That's my third kid to a T. He cannot physically sit still and hold a book. It's not possible. And so with an audiobook, he's good to go. He can walk, he can rollerblade, he can bounce a tennis ball, he can do whatever he needs to do to get all of his sensory input while he's reading.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if our true goal of teaching reading is to make students fall in love with books, then audiobooks are a must for our classrooms, whether it's homeschool or otherwise. This is one of those episodes. Sometimes our episodes are really focused on homeschooling and homeschoolers. Sometimes they're just like, hey, we need to do better by our kids, full stop, across the board. This episode is definitely one of those. And so this notion that audiobooks don't count as real reading, like it's ridiculous. We should no longer denounce or diminish the very thing that can make the biggest difference to some of our students. In fact, excluding audiobooks from the definition of reading really does perpetuate an ableist mindset that overlooks the needs of individuals with certain types of disabilities and can have extremely negative consequences for the very children that we say we care for and about. Okay, now, all of that said, and again, we will die on this hill. Okay, audiobooks are reading. Don't be an ableist ass. But also, do know that for some people, audiobooks are really challenging. Just like for some people, reading a physical book can be really challenging. If you're familiar with our podcast, you know that I have a lot of health issues and I am considered disabled. I personally really struggle to listen to audiobooks and even podcasts. Like we joke all the time. Like I host a podcast. I don't really listen to podcasts. And I'm going to take away very little from any kind of audiobook or podcast that I listen to. And my brain is going to feel like scrambled eggs afterwards. It's a bad combination. So please remember, the whole point is finding joy in reading. That is our goal. So whether that's a paperback book or an ebook or a graphic novel or an audiobook, we are trying to make sure that the kids that we care for actually love reading, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. That's absolutely true. Because I have one kiddo who does not really love audiobooks. And then I have two actually, who can only read audiobooks for different reasons.
Yeah,
each
for
of them.
different reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. One is the ADHDer and the other one is auditory processing. They cannot visual process the same way they can auditory process. And so she reads beautifully. I mean, she can sit and do a read aloud and there's inflection and the pauses are at the right spots and it sounds lovely. And then afterwards it's like, what'd you read? I don't know. I mean, there's just no ability to retain what she has done in that. And I think part of it is that she's so focused on getting the words right and getting all of that right that she's not consuming the story at the same time. But with audio, she can relax and just take it in. So it's like whatever works for you. The interesting thing for me too, like with an audiobook is, like you said, you'll feel like scrambled eggs. For me, I love audiobooks, but only under certain conditions. I have to be doing something else. I have to be walking. I have to be chopping vegetables. I have to be folding laundry. There has to be something else happening. If I were to just go sit on the sofa and put an audiobook on, I would retain none of it. I have to be doing something else at the same time. So I think that's the key. Find what works for you, like you just said, and do that thing. And it's going to look so different for every single person, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, for real. I mean, bizarrely, one of the best ways for me to get something out of an audiobook is for it to be some kind of like a self-help audiobook, often like a parenting one or something. And then I have the physical book and I'm listening to the audiobook while highlighting or putting my sticky notes in the physical book. But I just really, yeah, it's very rare for me to do a pleasure audiobook, but I don't want to miss out on those opportunities like the Trevor Noah book that he does himself. Or right now I have Spare, which
Oh, so good.
Harry has done. I haven't listened to it yet because I have the struggle with audiobooks, but I know that I don't want to just read his book because he's the one that's actually done it. So I'm going to find a way to power through the audiobook because I know I'm going to get so much more out of the audiobook than I will reading the physical book in this case. I just don't understand. I don't understand why so many people are still hung up on this. This is not complicated. If you are listening to me and going, no, you won't get nearly as much out of the audiobook that's actually read by the person who wrote it.
Whose life story it is. Yeah. I mean, it's tantamount to going to a lecture that's 12 hours long. Yep. Or you show up and Prince Harry's like, this is my life. And how would that not be beneficial? Just because it's coming through your phone and some AirPods doesn't make it less beneficial.
Yeah. And again, it's that thing. There's so much research around this, right? Like we're going to link these articles, but we could have done, I mean, we could have read you 50 studies and meta-analyses and articles and things from magazines and news journals and just the whole gamut. We could have done so many because there's that much research behind it. This is one of those things it was not about this specifically. It was about something else. And I was just like, I do not understand why people refuse to believe the science and implement the science just because it's uncomfortable or requires a little bit of change on their part. What has happened to us? Where have we gone wrong as a people that we're like, no, that science, I don't know. Yeah. But then we try to stand there and be like, well, we're not those science denier people who are flat earthers. Like, well, oh no. I mean, you're refusing to accept the science on this. It's there.
Exactly. All right, so let's recap a couple of concepts. And yes, there are more studies involved. 100% equal comprehension. There was a 2016 study that was done that found no significant difference in comprehension between print, digital, and audiobook formats. Listeners understood just as much as readers did. So that idea, now again, to Amanda's point, with her particular neurotype and brain function, she might not, but that's not because it's an audiobook versus a print book. That's Amanda or my kid who would get far more out of an audiobook than he would out of a print book. That's not the book function. That's his neurotype. So yes, differences exist. You have to find what works for your kid. But when all things are considered equal across those three mediums, there is no difference in the comprehension that can come from consuming content and in those various ways.
Well, yeah. And I mean, that also goes back to that thing. Just because one thing doesn't work doesn't mean that something else won't work. And so to say like, oh, well, they have terrible reading comprehension, full stop, because when you put them down with a worksheet and a quick reading assignment and they can't do that quick reading assignment and fill the worksheet out well, and like, don't be that asshole. Like, they don't have bad reading comprehension. You haven't found the medium that works well for them. And we know from research that when you find the right medium, reading comprehension, it's there. And so, yeah. All right. I'm trying to get off my soapbox. Okay. So number 2, cognitive, emotional, and engagement benefits. So the National Literacy Trust reports over 42% of kids prefer audio, and over half say that audiobooks improved their comprehension, sparked imagination, or eased anxiety. Okay, I don't know which parent out there is like, oh, I want my kid to have all of the anxiety. Thank you very much. But like, hello.
And
Right.
imagination is a terrible thing. Who wants that?
They need to stop being so creative.
But I think too, in the kids' audiobooks, especially, there's usually different voice actors doing the characters. In adults, they just modify their voices usually. But for the kids, because I know for my daughter, that was a big thing trying to transition into some of the adult books. She's like, but it's the same person doing all the voices. And even though they modulate, I don't like it. It's not. But in the kids one, it's like they do all the different voices. I mean, that's like magical story time of our childhoods where somebody sits there with like finger puppets and does voices and stuff. It's like, here, it's on demand for you whenever you want it.
I love how you're totally geeking out on it. Okay. So the other one, the New Yorker, notes that listening activates the same cognitive and emotional brain areas, and skilled narration can enhance enjoyment, like exactly like we were saying. And again, we've all listened to that book where like the female narrator tries to be the man or the man tries to be the woman. And you're like, oh, that's terrible. That didn't work, especially because if I'm going to listen to something, it's probably smut or a parenting book. And it doesn't matter in the parenting book, but in smut, it really matters. But skilled narration can truly enhance your enjoyment. It's like we were talking about before, the inflection, the intonation. It makes a big difference.
I saw an interview one time with this woman, Davina Porter, who narrates the Outlander books. And she's done a ton of other books too, but she's known for being like the queen of audiobooks. And it was something on PBS. And it was amazing. She talked about all of the factors that she takes into account when she's getting ready to record, even down to like what she wears so that there's no rustling fabric if she's moving, her breath work, the amount of work that goes into it and the amount of thought and preparation and training and all of that. And it was fascinating to listen to her talk about her craft because she is an amazing narrator.
That's awesome.
So loved it. Okay. The other thing we talked about, and it rings true, supports neurodiversity and accessibility. Audiobooks remove barriers, especially for people who are visually impaired, dyslexic, ADHD, second language learners. I mean, are you going to say that somebody who's visually impaired is illiterate? Right? That's really what it comes down to.
I mean, unfortunately, there are plenty of assholes out there who are going to, but let's not be those assholes. If you're listening to our podcast, let's not be those assholes, right?
I love that that's the theme of the podcast. Listen, if you're listening to this a year from now, we are in the heart of the Israel, Iran, and moronic president going, maybe we'll get involved, maybe we won't. I don't know. 2 days, 2 weeks, we're done. Like, I'm pissed off this week. I'm just done. So don't be that asshole is the theme of this week's podcast because it's exhausting to be alive right now. I'm over it.
Yeah, the birthday party parade that was like you got to give them props. All of the people who were involved that were clearly like, we don't want to be here. Listen to our playlist that he doesn't realize is actually,
bashing him.
It's just elected officials being detained by ICE while specifically asking for their judicial warrant. Like the world is a dumpster fire. We don't want to be those assholes, right?
Like audiobooks are the least of your problem. Just count it as a book and move on. Like that's where we're at, right? We're done.
Yep.
I mean, well, I even think about the fact, okay, so we're talking about neurodiversity and accessibility. Okay. Think about something that's not even as life impacting as dyslexia, motion sickness. So imagine, like sometimes I'll get a book where you can get it where you download the Kindle book and the Whisper Sync or whatever, where it's got the audio and it'll connect the two. So if I'm reading in my Kindle and then I pick it up on audio, it knows where I am and then I can switch back to my Kindle and whatever. I cannot read in the car. Cannot. I mean, I can't do anything in the car. I will get sick. And so it's like if I read 10 chapters on my Kindle, 10 chapters in the car, 10 chapters on my Kindle, 10 chapters in the car, did I only read half the book? No, I read the whole freaking book. Like it doesn't even make sense.
Get out of here with your logic. We don't do logic around here.
It's just like such silly logic. But yeah, I mean, visually impaired students can gain independence, can feel confident. Do you know how hard it is to find freaking Braille books and like a whole wide range of books in Braille? I taught a class one time. I don't even remember what the class was about. It was at our co-op in North Carolina. The main concept of the class wasn't like ASL or anything like that. But at some point, we must have been touching on accessibility or something like that. I decided that I wanted to get a menu in Braille so that I could bring it in and show the students and whatever. Where we lived, most of them had probably never seen Braille before. And, you know, when you go through a drive-through, like at McDonald's or whatever, it'll say Braille menu available. I had to go to like 10 places to even find one that had them. And when you would ask for it, all the people were like, huh? What are you talking about? I'm like, it's on your window right there. What? Huh?
No.
So I'm like, the accessibility factor is not there. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're really into a specific type, like you love books about dragons or you love fantasy, you love Narnia, whatever, the odds that you're going to find the entire series in the genre that you like reading in Braille and have it accessible and affordable and available to you and all that kind of, no, but an audiobook does that. So again, don't be an ableist asshole. That's the whole mantra of the episode.
Yeah, no, exactly. Our library is very big. It's 10 stories tall. Like we have our local library is huge. And the children's section takes up about a half of the bottom level. And then there's a separate young adult section. And our children's section is dozens of bookshelves. And sadly, I was pleasantly surprised to see that one bookshelf is all Braille books. And I was like, that's probably the first time I've seen an entire bookshelf dedicated to Braille books. And even still, it is a minuscule fraction of the books that are available to the other kids. But they have loads of books that are audiobooks. Like yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think we brought up earlier too, second language, right? I mean, when we lived in Florida, my kids, for the small period that they did go to school, they were in a biliterate program. So they spent half their day in English, half their day in Spanish. And they would do AR testing in both English and Spanish as well. And my daughter was actually the top AR reader in first grade, her last year in school, which was hilarious because we lived in an area where most people spoke Spanish 100% at home, and we did not. So, I mean, when they were younger, we had a nanny and she spoke Spanish with them, and my husband's from South America, but we were not like a dedicated 100% Spanish at home type family that was trying to like hold on to that culture and that language immersion. And a lot of people were. And so it was hilarious because one of the moms one day was like, my daughter said Astrid is top of the leaderboard for AR. And I was like, yeah. She was like, you're Astrid? I was like, yep, my little Astrid. Yep, she is, right? But even there, we lived in South Florida. It's a massive Hispanic population. The Spanish shelf at the library was pathetic. I mean, I was constantly having to transfer an interlibrary loan and all that for her to be able to have enough reading material in Spanish. So it opens up other avenues in so many ways.
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you go beyond that, so our home is barely, but also a dual language. But it's Cantonese is the second language in our home. And then we learn other languages as a foreign language. But you try to find the books. I mean, I was all about like, we're going to have books and we're going to make sure that they're books that are in English and Cantonese so that I can read the English version and my husband can read the Cantonese version and the kid will learn. I'm like, we had like 10 books for the longest time because that was all I could find. And at one point I was having to order them randomly from a British bookstore that still had like this connection to Hong Kong. So you're getting like books from Hong Kong to Britain to, I mean, like it's so hard. So if you can find them, awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like, use what you can use. It is so much easier to download an audiobook in Cantonese than it is to track down a book in English and Cantonese in the United States that you're going to get shipped from wherever, like through however many stops it takes. All right.
Yeah.
So number 4, it builds vocabulary and critical thinking. We've talked about this. We've covered it. But again, in our show notes, you're going to find another link for this. So listening exposes kids to advanced vocabulary and sentence structure beyond their decoding level. This is common sense, but if you need a receipt for whoever is barking up the wrong tree, we've got it for you.
Yep. And then lastly, we talked earlier about neurodiversity, but we've also got mobility and attention differences. Amanda's talked in the past before about even just her physical ability to hold a book, right? Can be very, very challenging for her. And so there are all sorts of things, but we've got a report that shows meta-analysis showing that tools combining read aloud features improve comprehension for dyslexic kiddos by 24%. So it's not just us showing up here and saying, we're in a pissy mood and audiobooks are books. We are in a pissy mood and audiobooks are books. But
We've got the proof too. We have
Real
real scientists, real researchers. We've got the information to back it up.
I forgot to add it to my notes and didn't think of it until we were talking. But one of our Patreon members, who I happen to be Facebook friends with, sent me a message the other day. She was at a conference, something to do with dyslexic learning. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but she ran into the guy who's the founder of Speechify, who's dyslexic.
Okay.
And Speechify, you can dump stuff in there and you can pick out your narrator and it'll read it out loud for you. So if the audio doesn't exist. And she asked him to record, I guess they had been talking about her kiddo who's dyslexic, and he recorded a video for her kid that she sent to me where he was just like, you're amazing and that your mom tells me all the stuff you're up to, and like it's like he was just the nicest guy. And I was just like, I just love people who love literacy. It's such a kind and welcoming and, generally speaking, inclusive community. And it was just really, it made my day to see the video. And she sent it. I was like, that's so awesome. Her kid's going to be like so over the moon when he sees that. We did an interview in our first season with Jonathan Mooney, who's a dyslexic author. And at the end, we had one of our listeners on who has a dyslexic kiddo, and he asked a couple of questions. And it was just amazing. I mean, he was just so supportive. And so the whole thing was just so awesome. And I loved, he asked him a couple of questions about reading. And then Jonathan Mooney's a big soccer fan, and so is the kiddo. And so in the end, he was like, who's your pick in like the Premier League or whatever in England? And he was like, oh, that's the toughest question yet. Right. And they just had this whole kind of geek out over soccer for a few minutes. It was really awesome. So I love the inclusive nature of some of the adaptive stuff that's out there for kiddos of all types. You know, whatever your needs are, there's something out there, and we should just be open to accepting it, which is pretty awesome.
No, absolutely. And I do want to take just a quick second before we wrap up and say, like, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yes, I love the idea of audiobooks, and yeah, maybe you use Hoopla or you're able to use your local library, there are plenty of resources. You don't have to pay for them. If you are struggling with that, because I know I definitely have a hard time getting the library system set up to play where my kiddo can listen. It's not always easy if you don't have your own smartphone or something like that. There are also online versions if you have internet access. And I know we've talked about accessibility with that as well. But there are all kinds of things out there. I know, like Reading Rainbow, there's a great documentary. If you haven't watched the most recent Reading Rainbow documentary, absolutely watch it. But you can watch all of the old episodes of Reading Rainbow where they'll read the books out loud and they show the images. There's, I think it's maybe called Story Time Online or Story Online, something like that, where celebrities and actors and things like that read picture books to kids. It started during the pandemic, but amazing reading. They do a really good job, and it's super diverse, awesome books. There are lots of ways out there that you can do this and tap into it, especially things like picture books, because it's really hard to get picture books. Even though they have higher Lexile reading numbers, it's hard to find like the audiobook of just a picture book. And so there are tons of options out there. I know this Story Online or Storytime Online, whatever it is, it's hosted on YouTube. So free and easy to access as long as you have internet access on your TV or your phone or tablet or whatever that device is. But yeah, there are lots of ways to access it. And if you need some help, you've got something in mind and you're not really sure where to go with it and you're listening to us, send us a message. We are so happy to help brainstorm whatever it is you're looking for or trying to make happen.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got our mantra for this week. Before we get to our mantra, just a little heads up that I would love to invite you to come and hang out with me in Lisbon this fall. My family are hosting a pop-up, a world schooling pop-up. People come from all over the world, converge on one city, and we explore the city together. We do museums, we do picnics, we do park outings, we do cultural activities. I mean, you name it, we do it. The kids split off and do their own stuff if they're teens, and it's pretty awesome. So I will link all of that info in the show notes. There's a Facebook group that's just an interest group. So if you're like, I don't even know what to make of this, come to the Facebook group. We'll be happy to help and answer your questions over there. It's November 3rd to the 10th of 2025. If you're listening to this in the future and you're like, darn it, I have totally missed this, but that sounds interesting. I have some others that I am noodling. There's a few of them taking shape in my brain for 2026, one that will be in Asia and one that will be in Africa. So if you miss Lisbon, don't worry. But yeah, come hang out. It would be amazing. And world schooling is an awesome way to learn. And right now, leaving the United States is also amazing too. So come hang out in Lisbon.
Yeah. Just make sure that you have a plan for getting back into the United States or what you're going to do if you can't, which is a whole other thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
we have had a nice discussion about audiobooks, and we're not going to talk about the dumpster fire that is US politics. Okay, so our mantra, we like to wrap things up with a mantra for the week. So this week we've got audiobooks aren't cheating, they're reading, full stop. If storytelling began with the spoken word, then listening is as real as it gets.
Mic drop.
Yep. There you go.
All right. So we hope this episode was helpful for you. Check out the show notes. There's tons of links in there, all the study links from things that we cited. Today will be there. We definitely like to bring our receipts. The Lisbon pop-up info is there. Our Patreon info is there. Calendly info is there if you'd like to come and schedule coaching. Everything is there. So we would love to see you beyond the podcast environment. So come hang out with us. We'd be happy to help on your homeschooling journey as well. So in the meantime, happy homeschooling.
Yeah, have a great one.